All right, so in this video, I want to explore the idea that it is impossible to talk about awakening. Yet, I'm going to record a video talking about it. So why is it impossible to talk about awakening? Because anything that you say, that I say, or that anybody says about awakening will be taken and turned into a view by the mind that hears it. The deeper awakening goes, the more any single view that the mind can hold is seen through. And it is seen that it is the holding of a view that is what causes identification and suffering in the mind, right? So any belief system that the mind creates, that this is how reality is. This is how, oh, so that's what awakening is. Awakening means this, right? If the mind grabs onto anything and tries to turn it into a view and tries to solidify it into a paradigm, into a view, right? That, so let me give an example, right? Our initial view is that we are a separate individual living in time, in control of all of our actions, making things happen, and that we need to kind of ruminate on the past. Shouldn't have done that. If only I could have done things differently. Right, this is like what the pre-awakening state feels like. It's this, that things could have gone differently. And that causes so much suffering, right? It's, I can feel like when I'm talking with a friend or a family member who, and this is not judging somebody from an egoic place, it's just you can feel the kind of, how it doesn't feel like a natural flowing of reality when someone is thinking about how things should have gone differently in the past, right? Saying like, oh yeah, I should have done that, and you can feel the disassociative, like that can only happen in the mind, right? In a disassociation from reality, not to, like judge anybody or anything like that, but to say that this is one of the things that is seen through with awakening, is that this hallucination of an alternate set of events having played out is purely to get away from the feelings that came about from that set of events having happened, right? So something happened in your life and it went bam, bam, bam. And then the mind goes, shit, I should have done this. I should have done that. I should have done that. Instead of acknowledging this is my reality right now. And the fact that all of these things have happened means that this is what I'm feeling right now, right? Whether it's guilt, humiliation, regret, embarrassment, shame. That's why the mind hallucinates alternate possibilities, right? So that's one of the things that can be seen through with awakening. But then if the mind turns no self into a view, non-duality into a view, and that when I'm talking about non-duality, I'm talking about the idea that it starts as an idea if you're listening to it from somebody else until it becomes realization in your own experience. But the way that people talk about it, like non-dual teachers online, that there isn't actually any one, there isn't actually a you in your experience that is separate from it. There isn't actually any separation in experience. There isn't you and experience, right? That doesn't exist. But then the mind can create a new view that there is no individual, there is no personality. But that's just a flipped over view from our previous view, right? So this is why I say it's impossible to talk about awakening. You can point to awakening, but you have to take the words lightly. right? This is why for me, like when I found Angelo DeLulo's work, it was the like clearest teacher that I'd come across, because I'd listened to a lot of other non-dual teachers who would talk very much from the absolute perspective, the no self perspective, the non-dual perspective. And that's to deny the conventional reality is wrong. It's a mistake. It's a view, right? So there's no view. Even the view that there is no view isn't, if the mind can turn that into another view, right? It can just be like, oh, there's no views. But it's the most accurate if we're going to try to talk about how reality is. And why does this matter, right? Who gives a fuck about no self, non-duality, and no views? Well, because to misperceive reality is to suffer. And that's why investigating your suffering is the most powerful way to stop suffering, to unwind the illusion of mind, right? And the illusion of mind is identification with thoughts and beliefs. So you have to see it to release it. The more aware you become of the thinking process of your internal beliefs, right? And you become aware of your internal beliefs by them getting triggered. It's such a good way to see your beliefs, is to see why is there resistance to what is being said by someone. Maybe it's me, maybe it's somebody else talking about awakening and non-duality, anything in spirituality, healing. So whatever you're seeing and experiencing in reality, and if it feels like suffering, and if it feels like peace, then cool, it's no problem, right? But you're probably not watching this video. But if there's no problem, there's no problem, right? But if there is a problem in reality, then you need to explore it. You need to go into it. You need to investigate it. And the view that at a certain point on the awakening path, I shouldn't suffer anymore, that's also a view. I've spoken with many people recently, people that I consider to be very deeply realized. And we just discussed the fact that suffering continues after anatta, no self-realization, which by many on the awakening path is considered the end of awakening. So you have to meet whatever is arising. It doesn't, like, this is why stages and all of that is so, must be held lightly with awakening, because whatever stage you're at, it doesn't really matter, because if anything arises, that's what needs to be met. That's what the awakening process is bringing forth in your experience right now. So if you start suffering again, it doesn't mean that you've lost your awakening, or it means that here is the reason there's suffering is because it's a misperception of reality. There can also be suffering, from my experience, suffering can also be as a result of the nervous system, the energy body, and the physical body. That's where the other stuff that I talk about comes into play, like the stuff about your nervous system and all of that. But it ties in quite importantly with the awakening stuff, because if you're suffering in the physical body, right? Like, for example, I cycled 135 kilometers yesterday, and I got back and I was severely dehydrated, severely sunburnt, severely exhausted, low blood sugar because I didn't have enough food. And this morning I could feel like there's a lot of inflammation in my body, right? So that's like the view that suffering isn't real would be just to bypass like what's happening on a physical level, right? If on a physical level I'm like, I need to do things that is going to reduce the inflammation in my body currently to feel better, then that's not like nullified by the awakening stuff. So suffering is a misperception of reality. It's a view that what is happening right now could and should be different. But if you surrender into it, surrender through the thoughts and then surrender on a physical level, the two can go hand in hand with each other, right? You can look after the physical nervous system, the physical body, the physical form. The rules of the physical world still seem to apply for me currently. I'll let you know if it changes. But yeah, if I push the body really hard, then there will be physical consequences. And then if the mind resists what is being felt in the body, then that's suffering, right? So I could talk about this in another way. The only thing that I can say about awakening is that shift from resistance to non-resistance. That's the only other thing I feel like I can say. All this other stuff comes later, but the first insight is into resistance. It was for me. And this is a key insight into all aspects of awakening, that resisting any aspect of experience is going to lead to suffering. And a practice of surrender and letting go is going to unwind that. So if there's suffering, embrace it wholeheartedly. Die into it. Allow it. Don't worry too much about views or understanding or knowledge or intellectual perspectives. It's about feeling. It's about surrendering. It's about letting go and seeing that the antithesis of letting go is living in thoughts, right? Because I've experienced it when I meditate and I sit and I use letting go as an inquiry. Then if it feels like I'm not letting go, it's getting bound up in the mind, right? Because the physical experience is so raw and intense and full on that the mind like scrambles to get away from it, right? So then when you're sitting and you're letting go, or you're inquiring, or you're meditating, and then the mind's like doubt and fear and confusion, like any thought that's catching you, I don't understand, am I doing it right? Anything like that is to get away from the physical experience. So keep it simple. Know that anything that arises is okay as well. There's nothing that shouldn't arise. You can get identified with something, but if confusion arises, that's okay. But don't become confusion from the perspective that you go around believing that story to be true. And there's nothing you can escape. You can't escape your pain. There's no way to escape your pain. There's no way to escape it. But that's not a depressing view, right? To the mind, that can sound like a hopeless view, like a depressing view, like there's no way to escape my pain, so I'm fucked. But your pain isn't what you think it is. Your pain is aliveness. Your pain is intimacy. Your pain is freedom. Your pain is peace. But it will burn up the mental individual. So There's no way to run around it. But you have to, the mind is gonna spin its stories, like you, to sit and inquire and want to go deep and be willing. That's how awakening happens. Awakening happens through willingness. That's all you can really do. But there's a big difference between being willing and actively fighting or actively going unconscious. That's the best way to say it. Knowing, like the thing with going unconscious, I want to say, knowing that you're doing something to distance yourself from the discomfort, but the way unconsciousness works is you fool yourself. You tell yourself, you'll come on and comment on one of the videos and say like, but no, for me, I don't get too many of these comments nowadays. I think the videos I make have filtered out a large part of that audience. But any kind of unconsciousness it's you're trying to delude yourself, but it's unconscious, right? So you have to be authentic to what you're feeling, but you also have to not hold onto any thoughts or views, right? So if confusion arises, like I don't know what's going on, I can't wake up, I'm to this, I'm to that, right? And then you believe it and you're like, yep, that's true, I'm gonna go and do something now, and live in that unconsciousness. And then you can go online and look for pity and say like, oh, but I can't recover, I can't heal. So that's the unconsciousness, right? The flip side of that, right? Like, so I like to try and call people out on that. Some people say my videos are direct. In comparison to other people I know, I don't think they're that direct. But the other side of that is having pure compassion for anything that arises, right? From the perspective of becoming more and more and more awake, you have more and more compassion for ignorance, for unconsciousness, because it's all innocent. It's all innocent. But there's this like fine balance between like being complicit in somebody's suffering. So like truly believing like, yes, your suffering is so real that you're stuck. You kind of want to point that out, that it's not really real. But the compassionate side is, but your pain is real, right? Your pain is real and it needs to be felt, but the story around it isn't really real, if that makes sense. This is where like some of the other non-dual teachers that I mentioned, well, I didn't mention any by name, but some of the ones that I used to listen to before I spoke about Angelo DeLudo can be very dangerous for people. Honestly, it can be dangerous for people because you're saying that there's nothing you can do and your suffering isn't real, which is something that one can come to realize, but you can only realize it through becoming totally conscious of whatever pain and suffering is in your experience, right? So you can't bypass. If you've been into awakening or spirituality, then I'm sure you've heard the term bypassing. And the mind will try to use any view to bypass things, right? I've done it so many times. I use the non-dual, no-self view to bypass so much. But it's innocent as well when it's happening. Like it's this fine line, the middle way, that everything has to play out in your reality for you to find the right way. That's all that I can say, right? Like sometimes I give too much of myself, like doing things to fit in with people around me. And then sometimes I'm too unwilling to like consider the reality of their suffering or something like that, right? Like with family members and this kind of thing. Sometimes it's like, okay, I'll just live their life, and then that starts to feel uncomfortable for me and like burning me out, and then I'll just come into my own. And it's this kind of constant push pull that clears things out, right? That you find the middle way of the natural flow of reality how reality wants you to flow without your ego's say in the matter. But that doesn't also mean that like you have to be so hard on yourself and you have to do everything for everybody around you. Because I know many teachers that also talk like, there's a lot in spirituality about doing things from the perspective of yourself, doing things from self-love. So you have to play around with it. You have to figure it out. That's why I said there's no views. It's this way, it's that way. It's no other way than it's arising. And suffering is the key pointer. Suffering is the greatest guru. The only guru you need is your own suffering. So don't try to transcend your suffering. Use your suffering as fuel. Your suffering, it's the fuel for inquiry. It's the fuel for awakening. It's the fuel for healing. Whatever in your life is triggering suffering, pay attention. Pay attention to your own suffering, your own struggle, your own discomfort. Discomfort, struggle, suffering, that's what I'm talking about. That is your teacher. It's going to help you more than any spiritual idea, than any course, right? Then if we're talking in terms of like chronic fatigue and long COVID, because I know a lot of people watch my videos for that kind of stuff. More than anything else can help you is your own suffering and the willingness to meet it. And then you can do stuff like in my other videos where I talk about total allowance and compassion and unconditional love. Like I've got videos where I really embody the energy of unconditional love. I'm showing you how to allow. So you don't know how to allow, go try some of my guided meditations. But meet your suffering, become aware of your suffering. And then in that process of meeting your suffering, you surrender, right? You let go. And you figure it out. Like there's so many times in my life where I've started doing things again and then it's like, it's caused some suffering in my life again. But it's just part of the process. You stop resisting it. It just continues to open you up. And if there's something inside of you that needs to come out, then it has to come out, right? So the fact that anything comes out, it doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. Like any emotion that you experience, any thought that you experience, it's not like, oh shit, you could have done anything differently to stop that from coming out. Anything triggered by any person in your life, any life circumstance, anything that causes you stress and struggle and resistance, it's helping you. It's showing you something. So be open. Awakening is not separate from your life. That's such a helpful thing to know, that awakening is your life playing out as it is. And you can just open up to it, to see it as awakening, or you can see it as shitty life and enlightenment and awakening and end of suffering and freedom and peace is somewhere else. But at some point that duality has to collapse. That you and the human in the human world is where you experience truth. But sometimes we need to be broken out of the hypnotic matrix of humanity, right? Where everybody's, I mean, that's the whole awakening process is to break out of that. So if life is forcing you away from, because you got sick and you have to retreat, this is what happened to me. That's why I woke up, because I was forced to go so deep inwards. But then when life called me back into the world, I couldn't resist either. And then it's been like a push-pull of sometimes I want to retreat and I can't, and then there's suffering because there's tension against my experience, and sometimes I'm too engaged and I need to retreat. So you just find this natural flow where you have your own space and you have your life, but you just have to see that every aspect of your life is awakening. It is the path. It is what you're looking for. What you're looking for is in your experience already. So that's good news. That you can go and sit and look for what's already in your experience. And it might take some time for it to become clear to you, but it's a helpful reminder that you can't fool yourself in the thoughts that it's only going to be realized in 10 years time when all of my life circumstances are aligned in a certain way. Anything that any awakened person is talking about, Ajashanti, Angelo, me, anybody that's talking on this topic and sharing from their own insights is talking about something that's already in your experience. So don't go and, I've gotten this comment sometimes before where someone's like jealous of my perspective. But I'm talking about your perspective. Like, it's difficult for the mind to understand because it's like, yes, but you've realized it and I haven't realized it and I'm jealous of that. But really, what I'm talking about is there's nothing that I have that you don't have. What I'm talking about is how that which you're running from is what I went into. So to be jealous of my experience is to say that I want something gone from my experience so that I can experience what you're experiencing. But it's complete bullshit, because the only way to understand what I'm talking about is to go into that which you want to get away from, right? That's what the mind thinks awakening is going to take away from its life. Awakening is that which you're running from, right? So if you're imagining like, when I'm going to be enlightened, when I'm going to be like, I know some people watching my videos are thinking of healing and recovering and whatever. So whatever it is, right? Whatever your mind is seeking, I want to be healed, I want to be free, I want to be enlightened, I want to be awakened. The only way that you're going to get it is by going into that which the mind is imagining is going to be gone through that state, right? So any person you're imagining, like, what is their experience like? It's in your experience already. This is why I've shared this in a video before. My literal favorite inquiry for this whole process is, well, here's one of them that I used a lot, which was, if I imagine liberation or enlightenment, what is going to go away? What is saying that I'm not currently enlightened? Like, so what is saying that you're not currently free? You're not currently healed. You're not currently enlightened. Okay, I'm not denying that you can have pain and suffering still, but I'm saying that which you're feeling like that is saying that I'm not enlightened. That's what you need to go into, right? That pain that is saying, so ask yourself that question: what in my experience is saying that I'm not awakened? Oh, okay, well, it's this experience. That's going to go away, and then I'll be awakened. Okay, cool. Let me go into that experience. Let me go into the sensation. Let me go into that thought. Let me go into that feeling. Like, allow until that way of thinking just doesn't work anymore, just doesn't land in the mind. It's got nowhere to land, where the mind can be like, oh, it's still coming. It's not, because if there's anything arising, then that is the awakening process happening in your experience right now, whatever is arising. Okay, so that's awakening. I started the video saying it's impossible to talk about awakening, but I said a hell of a lot. So that's why even saying that it's impossible to talk about awakening is in self a view. It is possible to talk about awakening, but it's impossible to put awakening in a box. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Okay, good luck. I hope this was helpful, and all the best.